Hey guys, if you want to skip around throughout the video, you can use the links above and it will take you to that section of this particular video. What is up guys, this is Kelsø from Exiled Power back with another Legion overview video. Today we're going to talk about what to do before and when Legion actually launches. So I'll discuss a couple things that you'll want to prepare prior to going through the motions of leveling throughout the new expansion, and then what to do when you're actually leveling and up until you get to max level. So first I want to talk about where all this information is coming from. I will link the spreadsheets that I am referring to in the description below, so check that out down below for the actual spreadsheets where this information is coming from. But I'm sort of going to give you a brief overview and synopsis of what that information is, where it's coming from, and basically just a real quick, down and dirty way to go through it. So first on the list is pre-Legion preparation. This is pretty important only because there are a couple things that you're going to want to do to prepare for launch day. And if you're someone like me who's going to be playing when the servers go live, you want to have every competitive advantage you can have in order to be that, realm first enhancement shaman, or win that race that you've had with your guildie, or help your guildie win the race so that the money you bet another guildie is yours, like in my situation. Anyway, so pre-Legion prep. First and foremost, you want to have a Water Strider mount. When this video goes live, you'll still have some time to start working on the rep if you haven't gotten it already. The Angler rep is the easiest way to get a Water Strider mount. You'll have to do a bunch of dailies, fish up a bunch of fish, but the rep it's almost laughable to get. You just have to grind it out. The other way is to fish in your garrison. You have to have a level 3 fishing shack, and it's to get the coins and trade them into Nat Pagal, and you'll get a Crimson Water Strider, I think, for 100 coins. So that's the other way, a little more difficult, a little harder, but you want a Water Strider. There are a lot of water-covered zones in Legion, and that'll help you tremendously going through and not having to worry about swimming or, finding a water walking spell, pot, whatever. Water Strider. That's number one. Number two, you're going to want to complete the starting scenarios that come out. So slowly but surely, Blizzard's releasing these starting quest scenarios that you just have to go through the motions of having them done in order to be up to date, so that when Legion launches, you can get right into things. You don't have to worry about going through those scenarios and completing them, because it'll just be a waste of time. Number three, you want to have your heirloom trinkets. Heirloom trinkets start at level 100 and go all the way up to 110. You can get them from completing Mythic dungeons right now in Warlords of Draenor. There are 5 of them, one for each type of spec. They have an agility trinket, they have a strength trinket, healing-esque trinket, whatever. They increase your damage done to demons, and they also scale to 110. We're going to be fighting demons all the time come Legion, so probably in your best interest to get them all, if not, if you haven't already. Fourth on the list is just prepare potions. I know it sounds funny, but having flasks, potions, healing pots, and damage, or whatever. And by healing pots, I mean health tonics. Flasks, potions, health tonics. You want stat food and augment runes if you can. So basically everything that you would use in a raid setting to max out your character's damage or healing potential is what you want to use during the leveling process in Legion. Again, you want that advantage over other players who may not have prepared as much as you have. it'll be a good thing for you to have all of those on hand already, so that moving forward you will be able to surpass the people that you're leveling with. Fifth, max professions. You want to have your professions at 700 when Legion comes to it, because you'll want to start your profession quests, and as we'll get into a little bit later, profession quests are a good way to A, help you level, and B, maybe make you some money come 110, and you know, when people excuse me, when people want that gear, you have the potential to make an extra buck or two. Sixth, you want goblin gliders. They may not come in handy, they may come in handy, they may just be useless, who knows, but it always is a nice option to have something that'll break your fall, or maybe help you get down to a location faster than it would be to, you know, run on a path or whatever. You could just hop off and goblin glider down. That'll increase your speed tremendously. You'll want the guild experience banners. I believe the battle, it's called the Battle Standard of Coordination. It's an epic on-use item sold at the guild vendor for 300 gold, and it increases your experience from monsters that are killed by 15%, I think, for 10 minutes. So if you are leveling with a bunch of guildies, one of you throws down this banner, and every mob that you kill within 100 yards of the banner, you get 15% extra experience. No brainer. If you can swing the 300 gold and you don't mind having another item to use every now and again, it's totally worth it. Next on the list, I don't know, what are we up to, 7? It sounds silly, but clear your bags, your inventory, and clear your quest logs. If you're not storing up quests, then this is a great opportunity for you to make sure that your quest log is empty, to be able to pick up any quest without fail come Legion, and make sure that your inventory is clear of all the nonsense that, obviously, with the exception of everything that I've mentioned before, you want it to be clear of, you know, any pieces of gear that you're just holding on to switch in and out of. Just get rid of it, throw it in your bank, don't have it on you. You want all the inventory space you can get. Hexweave bags are the best for that. Obviously 30 slot bags are going to give you the most amount of bag space, perfect for what you need. And lastly, you really want to go into Legion with as much gold as possible. This one sounds silly again, but the more money you have, if you can afford to spend 250,000 gold on the Dalaran ring, that's going to be a phenomenal upgrade from, I believe, level 101 all the way up until 110, and until you get an upgrade. So if you can swing it, perfect. If not, it'll still be nice to have gold this way. You know, if you want to buy an upgrade to a piece of gear, you know, a BOE here or there, you can do it. So that is also important. Those are all the pre-Legion prep items that I think you should have. Honestly, the more of these you can check off your list of having, the better off you are. If you don't plan on being hardcore, perfectly fine too. Something like the Water Strider mount is a quality of life thing where it makes a difference if you have it. If not, you know, you'll just be a little bit slower. So no big deal, but I will link all of the items that I just said in the description below as well. This way you don't have to fumble through the video to see them or to hear them again. Number 2 that I'm going to talk about is a leveling process. So just really quick, there are a lot of, I guess, frequently asked questions about leveling. You know, what should you do in this scenario? What should you do in that one? So I'll try to debunk them and just give some brief insight about what I think is the best method to use when you level. So going through the leveling process, don't loot everything unless you need it. So don't loot anything you don't need. Whatever else will be sent to you via the mailbox. We've all gone through dungeons where we might have missed something and it hasn't been looted, and we get out of the dungeon and we have mail from the postmaster saying, "Oh, hey, here are your dark iron scraps, or iron horde scraps, whatever they're called." And it's really annoying, but think about that with all the gear that you've sort of not picked up along the way. If you don't need to loot the corpse, just keep moving. I don't think that you'll miss out on all too much, unless it's a legendary or BOE, which would really, really suck. In addition, don't rush after treasure items. Unlike Warlords of Draenor in Legion, treasure items do not grant experience. So unless it's within 10 yards, I would say don't worry about it. You'll have plenty of time to go back and loot the treasure items. You'll get a map of treasure items later on, so don't sweat it. If you can't pick it up, or you don't want to, or it's within 10 yards, fine, pick it up. If not, leave it. Go on. Don't rush after rare spawns. Same thing. They don't award experience. You're better off just waiting until you get to max level to reap the gear rewards from those mobs when you get there. Dungeons, kind of iffy. They're not really the best. If you can clear them really fast, for example, at 100, if you jump into a dungeon real quick, chances are you'll be able to clear them relatively quickly. If you ended Warlords of Draenor with a heaping sum of mythic gear, and you know what you're doing, and you have a group of people in the same situation, know what they're doing, you'll be able to clear the dungeon fast, and it'll be worth that experience. If you don't find yourself in that situation, don't worry about it. Skip the dungeon. It's not worth the hassle and the time when you could be off solo questing and getting all that experience on your own. After level 102, don't do dungeons. It's not worth it. World quests and rep quests in each zone will be better worth your time. So if you're going to do dungeons, do them between 100 and 102. After 102, move on. Don't forget to pick a follower. When you hit level 105, you'll get a follower in your class order hall, and you want to pick that guy. It'll give you an ability that, it varies whether it's extra health or movement speed, so on and so forth. They all vary, so it's just a perk on a cooldown that you may get. Don't forget to pick it at 105. Going through each zone when you're questing, try not to stray away from the main storyline. It may be difficult to tell which quests are part of the main storyline or not, but if you can avoid straying away from the ones that sort of take you through the zone, and then you complete each zone like that, those are the ones that you want to focus on. If you can do that, then you're in good shape. Walking around doing your quests, you may stumble upon bonus objectives. If you do, okay, fine, go ahead and do them. If you're running around aimlessly trying to find, a quest mob or a bonus objective, whatever, you're wasting your time. Only do things if they cross your path. Otherwise, have a very specific goal, have a very specific way set to level to 110, and this way you'll be the most efficient, right? It's all about efficiency. When you hit level 102, go to Dalaran and get started on your class campaign. The faster you get it going, the better off you'll be. So that's huge. Make sure you get to Dalaran sooner rather than later once you hit 102, and that's how we'll transition into this next section of the leveling process, which I'll call how to avoid the crazy bottlenecks at launch. So if you've ever played at launch, you'll know that there's always been bottlenecks as far as clicking on something as part of a quest. Warlords of Draenor was clicking on the stone right in the first zone, and I heard horror stories about it. I didn't actually play on the launch morning or night, whatever, but I heard horror stories about people trying to steal the looted item, or other times people were nice and they created a nice long line for people to take turns and go one at a time, whatever. To avoid the bottlenecks at launch, you're going to want to do everything that you can outside of the norm, right? So Stormheim is a pretty big place or a pretty big starting area that I think a lot of people will be interested in starting in, because it starts off with a scenario. So people think, okay, well, no bottleneck scenario, I'll get through it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then, boom, you're done with the scenario and everybody's at the same place. So it could be bogged down with a lot of lag because of so many people getting out of the scenario at the same time. You may end up being screwed. So consider that. Something like starting in Val'sharah, which is more of like a linear zone as far as like the quest line, and there's not a lot of deviation from the main quests and objectives. This zone, I think, is a really good place to start if you want to get to 102 and then move to Dalaran to get your quest, and then move on to the next zone. It should be faster, theoretically speaking. Every zone has scaling questing, so you shouldn't worry about where you start. It's just a matter of, what your preference is. So 3 people could start in different zones and end up in the same place, and because all the quests scale, you're all in the same boat. Just be sure that you're using the zones to get the reputation for those factions within the zones, because you'll need at least friendly rep with the factions in the zones in order to do the world quests in those zones. So you want to maintain, or you want to achieve, friendly reputation with whomever is in each zone prior to moving out of that zone, if that makes sense. Lastly, the way that you can level, if you don't want to take the Stormheim approach, or like the Val'sharah approach, or any other zone which you think will be less populated, you could take the approach of leveling in the zone which starts with your professions. That's a popular one because profession quests give a good amount of experience, in addition to being able to work on your professions as you go and as you level. Again, it could be very lucrative as far as money purposes. When you get to 110, you'll have a good enough max profession where you could start crafting gear for people to purchase, and increase your gold capacity that way. All right, so 2 down, a couple more topics to go. Third, that I'm going to talk about right now, we're going to go through professions. I know we touched upon it a minute ago, but I want to sort of delve into it a little bit deeper right now. The profession quests that you get will be at level 100, where you start your profession quests, right? And you start in Dalaran in the Broken Isles, and then every 2 levels after that you get a follow-up profession quest. So you start at 100, then you get a follow-up at 102, 104, 106, 108, and 110. You have to be the max level in order to finish the profession quest line. So bear that in mind. There's no power leveling through the process. There's a very regimented way of going through it. If you are taking the approach of leveling, where you're leveling in the zone where your professions are, right? Try not to go completely out of your way to hit those quests. It's not the end of the world if you don't level your professions while you're questing. If you want to power level to 110 and then work on your professions, perfectly fine. You are not missing out on anything. The only thing you may be missing out on is maybe the gold that you could be having, while people that did it a little bit slower, leveled a little bit slower, but leveled their professions while they were at it, and now they're throwing things up on the auction house and selling them. That is the only downside of not doing your professions while you level. So, again, I was kind of on the fence about where I wanted to level. I still kind of am, but don't worry about it. Level where you feel comfortable, however you want to do it. Each zone has specific professions that are native to it. So I believe High Mountain is like leatherworking. So my shaman happens to be a leather worker and a skinner. So if I wanted to take the profession approach, I would start in High Mountain. Take a look at what professions are in each of the zones and what professions your character has, and then make your decision based upon that. The big thing about professions right now is that they have Blood of Sargeras, or Sargeras. So this is the bread and butter for Legion crafting, and they're all BOP, right? Bind on pickup. So there's no trading Blood of Sargeras. You have to have it in order to make things. You'll be able to get it pretty much a variety of different ways, but you need to have it in order to craft things. On the same token, Obliterum, I think, is a way to upgrade your crafted items level. 5 item levels per upgrade. So one Obliterum one Obliterum equals 100 Obliterum Ash, right? And then that 100 Obliterum Ash equates to 5 item level upgrade for your piece of gear, which requires 2 additional Blood of Sargeras. So 100 Obliterum Ash and 2 Blood of Sargeras should net you 5 eye levels on a crafted piece of gear. Crafted items start at item level 815, and they can be upgraded to 850. So if you go and you spend your time farming mats for that, perfect. You'll be in raid-ready shape. I don't want to say in no time because it'll take you a while to farm the stuff, but you'll be in raid-ready shape in a couple weeks. So keep that in mind. All right, so there goes professions. That's all I have to say about professions. We're winding down now. I'll briefly touch on artifact power and artifact weapons right now. What I can say about that is you want to focus on your main spec and beware that respecking your artifact weapon costs artifact power based upon what the next trait costs. So if your next trait costs 15,000 artifact power, then it'll cost you 15,000 artifact power to respec. So be really careful. Look at the right, not the right way, but look at the best way for you to talent out your artifact weapon before you just going in and before you go in and start just throwing points in there. Levels 1 to 13 are recommended to spend for your off-spec, just because the little amount of artifact power that it takes in order to get those first 13 points in there. So for me, I main spec Enhancement, but I will probably be off-specking Resto. So I'll eventually, when I get to a certain point, I'll want to throw the first 13 points into my resto tree. This way I get a good amount of depth in that tree, and it won't cost very many artifact points or very much artifact power. If you're not speed leveling to 110 and you can afford to take your time every level, try to go back to Dalaran, because there's always stuff going on in Dalaran. You'll always want to you'll always want to make sure that you're pumping out artifact power at some point in some capacity. So don't worry about getting all the artifact power that you want right away, because you will get it eventually, and it will increase exponentially over time, depending on your artifact knowledge, this, that, and whatever. So really focus on your current situation. If you're power leveling, then don't worry about going to Dalaran and trying to maximize your artifact power. Just get to 110, and then you can worry about it. But otherwise, slow and steady wins the race, and you can only gain more by making sure that you're in a good spot with your artifact power, and you're filling out your tree in an effective way, or in the most effective way possible. So that's it on artifact power and weapons. Lastly, I just want to talk about alts and additional characters, because I have all max characters on my server. So I may not play them all, but I still have them all at max level. And I'm sure a lot of you are in the same boat, or have a handful of alts that you can potentially play. Unfortunately, Legion is a very alt unfriendly expansion, for the sheer fact that there's artifact weapons, and you need artifact power in order to be effective with your artifact weapon. And so there's a lot of moving parts with it, but if you don't have a lot of time, it may be difficult for you to juggle a main and an alt until we get a couple months into the expansion, and your main starts. It slows down the amount of points that you can get, or the amount of points that you can put into your tree at one time, because one additional point may cost you 100,000 artifact power, and so it may take you a while to grind that amount. So once you start slowing down with your main, then you can start to focus on other alts. But the main takeaway here is there's no reason to rush for Emerald Nightmare on your alt, because the loot is relatively weak. There are no set bonuses in Emerald Nightmare in the raid, and the trinkets are quite subpar. So if you're looking strictly from a gear perspective, don't rush it just because you want gear on your alt. It's really not worth sacrificing the time playing your main to focus on an alt. It's more effective gearing up in Mythics and Mythic Pluses than it would be to try to juggle playing two main characters at the same time, because that would just be tremendous as far as the amount of time that you'd have to spend playing the game. And if you can do that, great. If not, like me, I work. I get a couple hours every day to play. It's not going to be very possible for someone in my position. Once you complete everything you need to do on your main character in a week's time, weekly quests and everything, doing all of the Mythic Plus dungeons and Mythics, whatever, that is a good time where you can start working on an alt, and if you can get all of your priorities straight on one character and then bounce over into another, perfect, great, you're in good shape. Focus gaining artifact power on your alts when you do start leveling them, because the more artifact power that they have, even though they may not be playing as much, as long as they're continuing to work on their artifact power, you'll be able to keep them in a good place, because a lot of what Legion is about is the artifact weapon. So making sure your artifact weapon is sort of up to date is huge for this expansion. So again, I'm sorry the video was so long. I didn't mean for it to be almost 30 minutes, but there was a large majority of things to talk about, and I really think a lot of this stuff is useful information. That'll be why I link the two spreadsheets that I sort of referenced for this particular guide. and hopefully you took something away from it. I didn't do a lot of the legwork here, but I tried to put this information in a coherent and cohesive way where you can watch a video and sort of be prepped and be ready to go for Legion. So hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. My name is Kelsø. I'm with Exiled Power. It was great talking to you, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.